Hello, we are Dan and Sam, and today we will be having a presentation on LGBTQ youths, mental health, and the effects of said mental illnesses. We will begin by breaking down the large topic into smaller ones: mental health in LGBT youth, stigma towards LGBT and mental illness, and the international viewpoint.
Now first, before we can continue, we must define a few terms here. First up, LGBTQ+. This means lesbian, gay, bi, trans, and queer. The plus is for everyone not in those letters. LGBTQ+ people are a minority that is heavily discriminated towards. Secondly, mental health. To put it simply, it is the state of a person's mind. But if we want to go for something more scientific sounding, it is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being.
Thirdly, the word youth. Now, for our definition's sake, youth is 12 to 25-year-olds in the case this is the typical research group we see in these types of researches. First, before we go on to discuss mental health in LGBTQ+ youth, we first must discuss what exactly is mental health. Now, what is on the slide is most definitely not a comprehensive overview of what mental health is, but there are a few pointers.
Of course, you can be mentally healthy, even if you show some symptoms from the ill column occasionally, because we cannot be 100% fine all of the time. Or likewise, you can be mentally ill without it being severe, or even without there being a reason for it.
Mental health problems can lead to suicide. What we see here on the screen is the rate of suicide in LGBTQ+ youth. It is alarming. This isn't even a reflection on the percentage of mental illness in the community, but rather the impact those mental illnesses have. This 29% is comparable to only 6% in straight gender-conforming youth. This 29% means that almost 1 out of every 3 LGBTQ+ youth has contemplated or attempted suicide. Numbers this high can cause despair in LGBTQ youth, which can lead to an increase in mental illness. This is by no means an acceptable number.
As for what causes this high of a number, it consists of 3 main causes: one's expectation of hatred, lack of acceptance, and the internalization of negative social attitudes, which is most commonly called internalized homophobia. Let's go over the expectations first. On a day-to-day basis, you see and hear stories of queer youth being murdered or tortured or disowned or abused. This will quite obviously change the way you think, and cause you a lot of stress since you know that it could be you. As an example of this, we can take the shooting in the Pulse nightclub, Orlando. Once you hear about a crime like this, no matter where you are, you will feel fear and sorrow. These were people with lives like yours, and they died just like you could have. This can obviously mess with the mental state of queer youth, waiting for the day this might happen to them. These attacks feel like a personal hit to you, leaving you extremely vulnerable, as you have to listen to other people talk about something that hits so close to home, very carelessly.
Now, everybody thinks that if people around you are acceptive, you must be safe to come out, right? Wrong. Because no matter how safe it may look, or however many times you say, "I don't care who you are or who you love," there will still be an annoying voice in your head reminding you of all the things they've carelessly said. Whether it be slurs, or saying of good riddance after yet another murder, or careless comments of disgust when seeing LGBTQ+ youth people. These are things they will say without thinking, yet they manage to hurt.
Overall, you're made to expect the worst in people who are supposed to be your best. You learn to expect pain and suffering and get relieved when there is none. This is not how it's supposed to be. No one should be afraid of who they are.
Lack of acceptance directly ties into the fear of people hating you, because in far too many cases people will hate you. Up to 40% of homeless youths are LGBTQ+. Out of that percentage, 68% have been rejected by their parents and 54% have experienced familial abuse. These percentages are far too high. This lack of acceptance can come from parents, family, school faculty, students, and even your friends. Now, this most common portrayal of rejection is disownment, but this is not necessarily the fact. Most common actual form of rejection is claiming that the person is too young to know, or that they are ruining the family. This is assumed to be less harmful, but tells the youth that their experiences and lives are not as valid as others.
The other biggest problem that falls under this category is bullying. Most of LGBTQ plus youth do not feel safe in schools due to bullying that is not interfered with by faculty. 71.3% of students have experienced homophobic remarks such as dyke and faggot. This bullying ties into our next part, which is internalized homophobia. Internalized homophobia is extremely harmful, not only to the person suffering from it, but also other non-conforming youth around them, as this homophobia can cause violence and aggression from the person with internalized homophobia. This internalization is not only limited to homosexuality, it can also be linked to numerous other identities. As an example, transgender people who are so deep in denial they avoid seeing and hearing about other trans people, also known as some specific subcategories of trans-exclusive radical feminists.
All of this combined, but not limited to this, leads to terrible effects in LGBTQ youth's mental health. These extreme amounts of stress and pressure can lead to effects such as a higher prevalence of drug use, self-harm, homelessness, anxiety, depressions, and extreme, but not rare cases even, suicide.
Some other major effects include missing school due to being afraid, resulting in a massive drop in grades. The higher chance of drug abuse can loop back into a higher prevalence of mental illness, which can lead to homelessness, self-harm, possible harm to others, and suicide. Now, after all these horrible statistics, we need something that we can do about this. Life cannot go on like this. But luckily, every single person can make a change to these statistics. Firstly, let's go over one of the two closest support networks for LGBTQ plus youth, friends and family.
First, we'll cover the part for friends. Friends are necessary, as when you're starting to become who you are, lack of support from people you trust, like family, can be a really strong blow. Friends are the key part in your support network, as when you're feeling extremely down, you cannot do much. If there are people who can guide you through a rough patch, your chances of being part of the 29% you mentioned earlier decrease. Friends typically provide acceptance and reprieve from the hostility you may otherwise encounter.
Next up, we have parents and other family. Parental rejection is typically the one that hurts the most, since they are people who are supposed to care for you and love you unconditionally. That is not always the case though. Now, what can be done about this is educating people, since most unacceptance and ignorance is rooted in fear and confusion. If parents strive to support their children and gain information about the struggles they face, we once again lower the percentage of suicides. This leads directly into the next group of people, which are teachers and school staff. As we've mentioned before, education is a key point in fighting fear and bigotry. When schools have more inclusive education and policies, as an example, explaining what is LGBTQ+ and proper sexual education for them on the education side, and no tolerance for bullying and acceptance for trans youth on the policy side. The youth are more willing to come to school, thus breaking the cycle of lack of education causing discrimination.
And the last group that we will go over is healthcare professionals. In America, over the past year, 18.4% of the LGBTQ people surveyed reporting avoiding doctor's offices to avoid discrimination. This can be disastrous on people's health. If people refuse to go to the doctor, even in the case of serious issue, simply due to a fear of discrimination and harassment, it can lead to extreme sickness and in some cases, even death.
Now, before we go on to stigmatization, we have to first define what exactly is stigmatization. It is when an action or a person is condemned or rejected. Now, most common forms of stigmatization for LGBTQ plus youth are lack of social acceptance, being disowned and bullied, and the lack of representation. The country's or society's attitude towards LGBTQ plus people also affects this. Let's take a look at some facts about LGBTQ plus lives and laws in different countries.
La France est considérée comme l'un des pays plus favorables pour les personnes LGBTQ car elle est de loin en place pour les protéger. Par exemple, en France, il y a le droit d'échanger les sexes sans stérilisation, le mariage entre conjoints de même sexe et l'adoption pour les couples de même sexe. La France compte multiples organisations LGBTQ, comme par exemple l'Association Act à Paris, SOS Homophobie, AKD, FHAR et l'Association Trans Aid. Ces organisations travaillent pour améliorer la vie pour les personnes LGBTQ. En 2002, une enquête a montré que 90% des France étaient indéfensées à l'orientation sexuelle des autres. Cependant, cela ne vous produira grand-chose parce qu'une des 4 milli, il y avait des attaques physiques contre les homosexuels de les deux genres. Même si les situations sont améliorées, nous voyons quand même que les attaques homophobes deviennent de plus en plus violentes. Suomessa LGBT-ihmisten tilanne ei ole paha, mutta siinä on monia alueita, joissa on parannettavaa. Aiemmin homoseksuaalinen toiminta on ollut rikos, mutta nykyisin homoavioliitto on laillistettu. SETA järjestää tapahtumia, kuten Pride, ja silloin useita tukiryhmiä LGBTQ-yhteisölle, erityisesti nuorille. Nämä tapahtumat eivät rajoitu pelkästään suomen kielen puhujille, koska niissä on mukaan sekä ruotsinkielisiä tapahtumia että monikielisiä tai kansainvälisiä tapahtumia. Muita vastaavia tukijärjestöjä ovat muassa Transtuki.piste, Krasek, sateenkaariperheet, alueelliset, setät siniksi ja Sexpo. Kaikki nämä organisaatiot pyrkivät parantamaan LGBTQ-yhteisön elämää.
Sverige heter det mest gayvänliga länderna i världen. Detta beror på storskaliga juridiska skydd för LGBTQ-samhällen. Några av dessa juridiska skydd omfattar, men är inte begränsade till, könsneutrala äktenskap, laglig könsförändring och antidiskrimineringslagstiftning gentemot LGBTQ-populationer. En annan sak gör att Sverige är ett av de mest gayvänliga länderna i världen, att människor fortsätter att kämpa för ytterligare förbättringar. Flera organisationer för LGBTQ-rättigheter som sträcker sig från de som är anslutna till ett politiskt parti till ungdomsorganisationer och organisationer för ett visst yrke, till exempel den svenska homosexuell polisföreningen. España es un país con raíces profundamente religiosas, pero ha tomado múltiples pasos adelante recientemente. Actualmente el matrimonio con el mismo sexo y adopción es legal y hay protección de discriminación a escala mundial. Además, el cambio de género legal es posible incluso sin esterilización, como es común en otros países. En múltiples encuestas, España está listado como un país extremadamente aceptable, con la mayoría de la población aceptando individuos LGBTQ.
Now that we've discussed different countries and learned some facts about them, let's go back to stigmatization. Societies all view LGBTQ plus populations differently, but there is a clear improvement in happiness of LGBTQ plus people if they have laws protecting them and more positive representation. The way these things are achieved and stigma is combated is by having easy access to information and education about LGBTQ plus people, and by normalizing LGBTQ plus people in the community via media showing LGBTQ plus population in a positive light. When people see others like them being represented, it brings a feeling of happiness and safety, as we see the world going towards the better, not the worse.
So, to recap all of this, we have gone over LGBTQ plus youth's mental health and the causes and effects for a high suicide rate of 29%. We have discussed what can be done on a personal, national, and international levels. We have gone over stigma and the adverse effects of it and how we can combat it. Now, after all of this, you may say that there is one thing that we still haven't discussed, And it is, why is all of this important? Of course, these are disturbing statistics, but this doesn't concern the majority. That is where you'd be wrong. LGBTQ plus youth has a strong effect on our future. By accepting them, we make existing easier, thus leading to more successful youth. By not accepting them, we effectively smother their creativity and will to live. Once a specific group of people is not willing to live due to discrimination, it's a slippery slope for other minorities. But even if we gloss over the detrimental effects on other minorities, there is one thing we cannot deny, and that is that the youth are the future. By letting a specific group of youth be rejected, we lose an entire group of people. Inventors, scientists, politicians, doctors, teachers, and most importantly, human beings.